Okay, so we're ready to go. Parashat Shelah. As we all know, the highlight in Parashat Shelah, unfortunately, more like a low light, is Het HaMeragelim, the sin of the spies. It's a fascinating analysis to look at the difference between the Het HaEgel and the Het HaMeragelim, the sin of the golden calf, post Matan Torah and Har Sinai, and the sin of the spies approximately a year later, before Am Yisrael is ready to march into Eretz Yisrael. And the truth is, the discussion and the analysis in seeking the distinction between the two is fascinating, and it's almost can sort of transform into a philosophical conversation. And it's not going to be our main focus, but suffice it to say that Het HaEgel seems to be a sin with a less harsh and more lenient reaction, you can say, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where it took a while, and of course there was a punishment. People were punished, people died because of it. Levi ended up being an exalted tribe because of it. And certainly HaKadosh Baruch Hu had, so to speak, stepped away for the moment and removed his presence, his Shekhinah, from Am Yisrael. And there's no question it was a source of mourning for Am Yisrael. It's the anniversary on Shiva'asar B'Tammuz, which is coming up, and it's still looked at as a sad, tragic event. However, Moshe Rabbeinu, first of all, saved the nation from annihilation with his prayer. After his continued prayer and pleading, beckoning HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his return to Har Sinai, eventually was successful in retrieving the relationship between Hashem and Am Yisrael, bringing forgiveness seemingly, and eventually the proof to this return of status of the Shekhinah, of divine presence among Am Yisrael post Het HaEgel, is the building of the Mishkan. And although Hachamim tell us, based on the Pasuk, where Hashem told Moshe, Yom Pochti Fachti Alechem Hatatchem, the day of remembering, I'll remember your sin. Hachamim say every punishment to Am Yisrael and the rest of history has a bit of retribution from Het HaEgel. That aside, on the surface of the storyline, you see that Het HaEgel, Am Yisrael at the time, that generation, were basically absolved. And life went on, and it went on in a wonderful way with a close relationship to God. Through the vehicle of the Mishkan. That was the aftermath of Het HaEgel. Het HaMeragelim, on the other hand, it's a very stark contrast in a manner that there was no turning back. Het HaMeragelim caused the destruction of an entire generation of adult Jews in the desert. According to one opinion in the Mishnah, they lost the Halak of Olam Haba, and it stalled a 40-year, created a 40-year hiatus between, unnecessarily, or at least 39 more years, between Yetziat Mitzrayim, Matan Torah, and eventually the redemption into Eretz Yisrael. And of course, it established the Sh'a B'Av. Why was it so more severely treated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So, instead of really focusing on the substance, on the content of the sin, of the guilt and iniquity of Am Yisrael, I want to focus instead on the reaction of Moshe Rabbeinu in terms of his immediate prayer and how he was activated in his plea to God, what approach he took, and to contrast how differently that affected the eventual result and how Hashem reacted to Moshe Rabbeinu's prayer in Het HaMeragelim, and what lessons we can glean from that. So, Het HaEgel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, after he witnessed in his own eyes, or first he heard and then he saw the travesty, Hashem said, that's it. Ata nihali, leave me alone, Moshe. V'yiharapi bahem, allow me to anger them, allow my anger to be unleashed upon them. V'achalem, I will annihilate them. I'll start again with you. By the way, that's not it's an idle threat. Hashem does not make threats. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu communicates something, it is a decree. When he says, I'm warning you, I will annihilate and destroy them, that's not a warning. That's a decree. That's saying they are dead. I'm going to annihilate them. They're finished. I'm hereby enacting my destruction. That's what that is. Moshe Rabbeinu immediately went into action in what is the most brilliant defense presentation in the history of all attorneys, lahavdil. And it's by Hal Moshe. We read it every single fast day, except for Shah B'Av, including Shah B'Av and Mincha, by Hal Moshe. And basically, you can look at Moshe Rabbeinu's defense of that decree of God to annihilate Am Yisrael because of Het HaEgel in 3 different divisions. Very simply, you just look at the Pesukim. The first one is, Hashem told Hashem, and by the way, the words are Lama, why God, why God? Hashem put the onus, Moshe put the onus on Hashem. Why should you anger with the nation that you embraced, that you chose, that you redeemed from Egypt? Second prong in the strategy is to tell Hashem that the Halul Hashem is forthcoming. And why should Misraim say the following? And why should it look terrible in the eyes of the world? And finally, the prong 3 is Zechol Abraham, Yitzhak, Yisrael, Abadecha, Zechut Avot. Remember the forefathers in their marriage. You promised them to get to the land and inherit it. Well, you can't take that promise back. And indeed, it says the famous reaction of God to this powerful beckoning by Moshe Rabbeinu is Vayinachem Adonai al hara'ah shediber la'asor le'amo. Hashem was consoled. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was appeased, and he decided, I'm not going to wipe them out. Of course, Hashem's presence was not yet restored. It took a while and a process of prayers from Moshe Rabbeinu for that to happen. But I take back my decree of destruction. Simple as that. One prayer. Fast forward. A year later, approximately, Het HaMeragelim, Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction. In fact, let's see it on the screen and let's share it together. Moment. Okay, here we are, Het HaMeragelim and the defense strategy. You see that Hashem's reaction is similar to Het HaEgel. Pasuk Yud Bet, I call the decree because that's what it is. He told Moshe Rabbeinu, Akenu badeber ve'orishenu. Let me smite them, I will smite them with a disease and I'll destroy them. Sound familiar? I'll start again with you. You'll be the start of another great nation. Again, we look at this as a decree. I'm about to obliterate Am Yisrael. Nothing less. What's Moshe Rabbeinu's response? Let's read a little bit. Pasuk Yud Gimel. V'yomer Moshe l'Adonai, v'sheme'u Misraim, ki hi'alita v'chochacha ta'am hazeh b'chirbo. That sounds familiar. What will the Egyptians say? What will the rest of the world say? I actually skipped the next 3 and 4 Pesukim, but continue on that same track. We can't open the door and give a chance to Misraim and anyone else to question your motives of the exodus of Egypt and for this to become a Halul Hashem. That seemingly was the only claim that he had. And then in Pasuk Yud Het, he went into begging mode, using words with which we are somewhat familiar. Yud Het, Adonai erech apayim, v'rav chesed, nosei avon v'fasha. Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're patient, you're abundant of kindness, you uphold sins. And the next pasuk Yoter, he asks, based on that, please forgive their sin. Just like you upheld them and allowed them to survive, you maintained their existence from Yetziat Mitzrayim till now, despite all their nonsense. Please forgive them. Look what God said. He didn't say, I forgive. He said, I'm forgiving exactly based on your words, based on what you're asking for. And then he informed them later, which we will go back to analyze, the punishment of the 40 years in the desert. What happened to the three-pronged approach? Moshe Rabbeinu, in other words, he didn't say, God, why anger at your nation? They're your people, they're your children. He did not at all strategize by utilizing Zechut Avot, the merit of the forefathers, the land, the promised land. He forgot that altogether. Essentially, and apparently, Moshe Rabbeinu saw this immediately to be a much more severe sin. And suffice it to say that because they were more than a year removed from Yetziat Mitzrayim, because this was not just panic of the moment like Het HaEgel was, a reaction to Moshe Rabbeinu's non-return seemingly from Har Sinai, and because embedded in this sin, as we see later in the book of Devarim, was statements of lack of faith and belief in God, and because, as it says in this parasha, that they actually packed their bags, it was not an idle threat, and started to, so to speak, make their move to go back to Mitzrayim, because of all those factors. And again, we're not making a critical analysis to compare to the two sins, but apparently Moshe Rabbeinu saw immediately that this sin is too much to bear, and that there's not going to be complete absolvement and complete forgiveness to this sin. And therefore, I have no chance to override this decree. And therefore, I will strategize. Yes, I'll mention the Hilul Hashem that has to be mentioned. What will the Egyptians say? And otherwise, I'm going straight to begging mode because I don't have much of a defense. Look so carefully in Pasuk Yud Het, the words that I put in the blue bold, as to the choice of Moshe Rabbeinu's terminology. From where are you familiar with this? Obviously, from the Yad Midot, Vayavod, Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rahum V'Hanun. But look at the terms that are missing. Well, there's only one Hashem. There's not Amonai, Amonai. Because the meaning of that is that it's the very same God, the merciful God, prior to and post sin. Over here, he only mentioned one Yud Ke Vav Ke, one Amonai, because post sin, it's not going to be the same. What did Moshe Rabbeinu skip? Kel Rahum V'Hanun is blatantly absent. He is not appealing to Hashem's traits, simple traits of mercy, Rahum V'Hanun, because apparently this sin does not warrant even that request. It's so severe. And he goes straight to Erech Apayim, long to anger or extreme patience, which does not imply necessarily an erasing or forgiveness. And then Rav said this will take kindness. And Noseh Avon Vafasha, what word did he skip? Noseh Avon Vafasha V'Hata'ah. Hata'ah means a sin unknowingly, without knowing that it's wrong. But I can't bear to be so bold and brazen to mention the word Hata'ah, because this is knowing, this is inexcusable, this sin. And for that, I will not even mention the word Hata'ah. In essence, gentlemen, the only thing that Moshe Rabbeinu saw fit to do, as you also see in Pasuk Yud Het, he said, Kasher Nasata, as you allowed them to survive and maintain their existence, is stall. There's going to be no forgiveness of the sin. It was clear to Moshe Rabbeinu. So his defense strategy here was the most that he can possibly do, appealing only to the traits of God that will allow for the stoppage of an immediate enactment of the decree of destruction. Let me stall. God, I'm asking for Erech Apayim, they deserve death. There is no excusing and no way of justifying the sin in terms of lack of knowledge or panic or unbeknownst to them. It's right there. It's blatant. I'm putting it out on the table. Here it is. Cards are open. Tremendous avon. I'm asking and I'm appealing to your trait of arichut apayim. I want patience. Don't kill them right away, because a lot could happen with time. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is focused strictly and simply on a stalling tactic. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers him so poignantly in Pasuk Chaf, and he says, and that's why I bolded that word, Salachti kidbarecha, as you requested. I'm still going to obliterate this generation, but as you requested, as your words, I will react to them. And that is patience. And thus, the 40-year punishment, or the 39 extra years in this desert. And that was a stalling tactic. What did Moshe Rabbeinu gain from that stalling tactic? Well, first of all, he saved the nation, because we gained everyone under 20 did not perish. And perhaps we even gained more. But let's look for a moment at something that is perplexing. In the news, informed by Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, he frames the punishment in a way we wouldn't assume. Pasuk Lamed Bet says, Piglechem atem, you're going to die. You're dying in this desert. Lamed Gimel ubnechem, your children will survive. Then Am Yisrael will be perpetuated, and this nation will continue. And here's the way I'm going to handle it, says Hashem. Pasuk Lamed Dalet. V'mispar hayamim asher tartem et haaretz, 40 yom. Based on the amount of days that you spied the land, 40 days. Now, what does this seem to be at first glance? Based on the amount of days, Yom lashana, tisut avonotechem 40 shana. I'm going to uphold the sin. I'm going to allow for arichut apayim and patience and stretch out the punishment time over 40 years. 40 days, 40 years seems to be saying, midah keneged midah. I'm going to punish you 40 years because of 40 days. And that's the way I respond, and that's the way I agree with your request for patience. But gentlemen, if I were to say that for every day I'm going to punish you a year, or I store for a year, what would you say? You would say, 40 yom, shana layom. Shana layom. A year for every day. A year for every day. I'm punishing you a year for every single day that you spied. What's yom lashana? It's the exact opposite of terminology usage that you would expect from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yet, with our current understanding of Moshe Rabbeinu's strategy, we could look at those words in a different light and see that they fit in ideally and perfectly. Yom Lashana could mean, in this context, that Yom, for a day of sin, Lashana, it's going to take a year of patience. Yom, you want stalling Moshe Rabbeinu? You want Erech Apayim? I'll give it to you. But Yom Lashana, it'll take a year of patience for my anger to be drawn out. That's how severe, that's how serious, that's how quote unquote angry I am. It'll take a year for every day of sin. And thus, the 40-year complete stay in the desert of Am Yisrael. What we see from this is that, first of all, is more than just a virtue, is a powerful trait from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it prevented obliteration of a generation. But it did more than that. Because reflecting later in the book of Vayet Hanan, Moshe Rabbeinu told Am Yisrael on the bottom of the page there, I want you to remember the road in which I guided you. Look at the bold blue on the bottom. Ze 40 shana b'midbar. 40 years, leman anotecha lenasotecha. Why did I do it? I did it to test you. I oppressed you, and I gave you some suffering to test you. But the Arba'im Shana, reflecting back on Het HaMeragelim, was the Arichut Apayim that they needed in order so that I could put you in a position of test once again and give you multiple opportunities to make up for the 40 terrible days of your sin. And therefore, it turns out here that the constructive result of the patience, and this is the constructive result of any time HaKadosh Baruch Hu has patience with us, that is a chance to make teshubah, which is a complete teshubah, is a chance to be placed back in similar situations in which you have the opportunity to refrain from the sin that you made the first time around. Was Am Yisrael completely forgiven? Well, that generation died in the desert. That generation might not have made Olam Haba, according to Hachamim. But as in totality, as a nation, it seems like that because of the powerful prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu, his brilliant strategy of stalling, that we were given opportunities throughout these 40 years, a day for a year of patience. And every year of patience presented grand opportunities to be put in similar situations and refrain from the same reactions and be able to make teshubah, in essence, for what we've done. And in that way, this prayer of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Arichut Apayim of Hashem saved the future of our nation. And we really see, besides the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was so exact in his prayers, was so knowledgeable in his ability to elicit the different types of God's traits and align them to the appropriate situations, that he found the perfect formula always to find forgiveness of Am Yisrael. But we also see is that Erech Apayim is an incredible trait. How often do small things happen to us, and we think they're small things. Maybe it's because of something small that I did. Although ultimate punishment is not in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu certainly does dish out some harm to us in this world for a multiple of different factors, which we won't go into now. But sometimes there's 100 or 1,000 small, minute, so to speak, punishments that are only cumulatively adding up to something more severe, God forbid, that could have been for something more severe that we did. But that is called Arichut Apayim. And therefore, when something small happens, it could be just a very tiny component of something that much, God forbid, larger and more severe that could have occurred to us. But because of God's trait of patience and our prayer to please display and demonstrate patience with us, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has that patience with Am Yisrael and with us as individuals so often. And that great trait serves to save us from punishment and to give us chances, grand and wonderful opportunities to make teshubah all the time, as he saved Am Yisrael in the desert, that generation, and gave us opportunity to continue and to survive for all of history.
Hello, Rabbi.
And amen.